we tell ourselves in that experience that we're failures or we've made a mistake. So a lot of people are scared to set themselves up to experience failure. I invite it.
This is the Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
What is up, deep divers and the Create community? Thank you for tuning in for this deep dive live with Joel Brown. Joel is the founder of Addicted to Success. And the reason that I actually wanted to bring Joel in here, because he is a very highly regarded speaker, international speaker, coach. One of the things that I really respect most about Joel is his mindset. He is someone that I consider to be like a wizard when it comes to positive mindset, being in the right mindset for achieving your dreams and your goals. And so that is something that he brings to everything he does. And it's very inspiring to me personally. So I'm very excited to welcome Joel Brown to the Deep Dive Live and the Create community. What is up, Joel?
Thank you for having me here, mate. Thank you. I think this is the second time on the Deep Dive you've jumped on my podcast before. And every time we do our podcast episodes, they're so real and so raw. And that's what I love about you, man, is you're willing to go there. You know, it's like, how vulnerable can we get? Right? I love it.
It's about vulnerability. It's like, I just don't have, I feel as if I've stopped having any separation between like any parts of my life. You know what I mean? Like you and I got to travel to South Africa together to do a really cool event in South Africa for charity and called Master Your Money Mindset. And when we went to South Africa, we got a chance to live together. And that was an opportunity for me to see like the copious amounts of cocaine and strippers that you take in every day.
Yeah, right.
No, but what I did get to see is
did you just Preston me? This is the type of shit someone like throw you right on the bus in front of the whole world.
But what I did get to see is your commitment. You know, every single morning you're listening to audiobooks that are pulling you forward. You're going to the gym regularly. You're paying attention to your business and doing what needs to be done for that. And so I got to see. You know, there's a lot of people that have a persona that they can put up and they can repeat all the fancy quotes and tell people about the mindset, but who's living it? And so it was really cool to see you being just an embodiment of what it takes, you know, to be successful, to be running the type of business that you run. So kudos to you, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And the same to you, man. Like I think maybe we inspired each other in different ways. It was really cool. We had this complementary way of bringing skill sets and inspiration to each other. And, you know, I'm a big believer that success is a habit, right? More of what you do is more of who you become. And it's really about forming this identity. And I think a lot of people, they want the big dream or the goal or the vision, but they're not willing to transform their identity in the process. It feels really uncomfortable. You know, because your current comfort zone is your identity. So it's like, if I want to change it, I have to come out of that comfort zone. And I'm just a big believer that if you've got a really big vision, you need really big habits. You've got to have cornerstone habits and you've got to be consistent with those habits. And I see you, bro. I see you like you've got like down pat, you've got your sequences, you show up in it. But at the same time, you also have fun with it while you're doing it. So it's not this monotonous thing. And I think you've got that down pretty well. I think a lot of people don't quite have that. You know, it's like either one or the other. It's like having way too much of the flow and then like not having the hustle, right? Which is like, you know, feminine and masculine, right? They're kind of like, it's the reward and the responsibility. They don't quite know how to dance between the two. And they're either one heart in one and then they're exhausted, or one heart in the other where they're reckless, you know?
So what would you say? I'm curious, what was there anything about what you saw about how I operate? Because I've been very much in the exploration and observation of how I operate a lot recently, especially in this time with the pandemic and just like being inside, focusing in, and what do I use that time to do, and paying attention to my habits. I'm curious, were there any habits that I have that really surprised you after spending, like 2.5 weeks living together?
Um, I don't know if I could say it was one specific habit. I think it was the overall feel of what you're up to. I think two things. One, first, I don't know if I would say I was judgmental towards the way you showed up because it was so different to me. And you're like, what?
I think I started the last podcast by saying, Joel, why don't you just tell everyone how you didn't used to like me? Just tell everyone. tell my entire community here and create. Tell them how you didn't used to like me.
I used to think Adam was a suck up. I used to think that he was so on Preston's dick. And I thought like he was trying to be like Preston, and I was like, what's up with this dude? Like, find your own stuff. Yeah. And and over time we actually stayed in a room together in Mexico when we told him, and and I got to know him, more and more over the trip. And then by the end of the trip, I was like, he's a good dude. But no, what I was going to say before, when I was talking about like judgmental and judging, I think we all judge, right? We're always weighing up. We're like, does that align with what I'm up to? Is this my value set? Whatever. With the way you were doing things, I was like, I was kind of like, more than anything, just trying to like, I was observing and kind of like, how does that work? And there was a little bit of judgment around it because it was like, to me, I was like, oh, that's so feminine. Right. And I realized in the process, you were just a mirror reflecting back to me. And it was like awakening in me this whole understanding or realization that I was denying the feminine a bit too much.
And when you say feminine, you're talking about the like flow with which I kind of like receive the way
I was almost like, and then I know that you've done really well as a coach and everything else, and like when you're doing like the music and everything else, I was just like, how are you, like, if you keep doing it like that, like, how are you going to keep building the business? How are you going to keep it? And then as I was like, you know me, man, I'm like asking you more and more questions. I'm like, how does this work? And what is your setup? And how many stuff do you have? And then I'm working it out. I'm like, this is really cool. Like, you set this lifestyle up for yourself so that you can have that play and that fun and you can create. And what it reminded me of, it was nostalgic, man. I used to be in the music industry. You know this, right? I used to manage producers and songwriters, and also used to produce too. And it took me back. Like, it legit took me back to a creative space too. And since I've come home, man, I got to say, for sure, you've inspired me in this sense. I'm working on a mixtape right now. It's an affirmation. It's an affirmation, meditation, visualization mixtape. And originally, I wanted to create it for my academy, for my academy members. And I'm having so much fun with it. I'm like, man, I want to put some of this out in the public. And I actually did this, like, it's kind of like a motivation pump up track that's coming out soon. I think it's great. I think it's good. But it doesn't stop there, right? It's like our music is like, I remember watching an interview with Hans Zimmer, that guy. He's an incredible composer, right? He's produced
probably the best of all time, just so everyone. He did the soundtracks to Interstellar. He did the soundtrack to Inception. He's epic.
Yeah.
Gladiator. He did that.
Yeah, that was a big one. Now We Are Free. That's a huge track. Lisa Gerard and Hans Zimmer. That's my meditation track right there. But I remember seeing an interview with him, and people were asking him, like, what's your favorite track that you've ever produced? And he's like, I haven't made it yet. He said, and that's the thing that keeps me going. And that's what that woke me right up. I was like, man, that is so cool. Like, that's what it's about, is that the fact that we are so blessed, so gifted that we get to create, right? We're created and we get to create through that as an expression. And I think that that's what it is for you too, man. When I see you, like, you're not afraid to express. And I realized, with us hanging out, I was like, man, like, that's what I would like to embody more of, is that whole like courageous expression. Because that's what art is, right? You're expressing all the time. That's you're painting on the canvas of life. And I've been doing a little bit more of that lately too, man. So you inspired me to drop into the feminine a little bit more, man. It's been really cool. I've been having lots of fun with it, man. Because I can tend to be all or nothing and like burning myself out from both ends of the candles. And it's just good. It's good to be aware of your energy and where it's going and how you're managing it.
Yeah. And no, I appreciate, I love hearing that, because one of my absolutely favorite things is when people let me know, whether they're comments, whether they're friends or whatever, they say, yo, I'm doing more expression. I'm doing more art. I'm doing more creativity because of what I'm seeing you do. Like that to me, it's like what we're here to do. For me, what I'm here to do is drop the stones and make the ripples. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's if to know that Joel Brown is one of those ripples right now, and your creativity and your expression gets to be something that I can look at and be like, yo, I contributed to that new track that Joel came out with, or that's really cool for me. And I think that for people who are listening to this right now, what's important to understand is that the balance of this, you don't have to overlap them. Let me see how to say this. My creative expression for a long time was acting, right? And that was the career. And then when I started to become a coach and have success as a coach, I started to really focus in on like the business strategy of coaching. How do I put out these videos? How do I do these things? But I always found a way from the very beginning to say, how do I make it my expression? Because there are like proven things that work, like a sales funnel and different things that very much work. And my question around that for you is, are you finding that more, like I found the space where I can blend those two worlds? I can blend those two worlds. And sometimes I'll go off and I'll do something like my album Permission, which
Yeah.
is completely different than what people would expect. And yet, if you really think about it, the album is spoken word poetry, and the album is personal development concepts where I'm talking about things like scarcity mindset. I'm talking about things like how to emotional intelligence. So it is personal development. It is spoken word poetry, two things that I'm already doing. So it doesn't actually feel so like off to me the way that it does to other people, where it seems like it's this whole other thing. And I'm curious for you, how do you blend your creativity? How do you blend the part of you that wants to express with like a good business plan?
I'm going to be straight up honest with you, bro. I think you get to a point where you get so freaking bored with business that you want to express, right? You want to bring the creativity into it. And I think initially it's establishing the business, right? And for me, the first couple years I did it all by myself. I had a Superman complex, right? No one else could touch it. If they touch it, they screw it up. It was my whole perfectionist thing. It was coming from scarcity. And when I started to bring on interns, that's how I started with, my staff, is bring them on as interns, have them on a 3-month probationary, started training them up. I realized very quickly, I'm like, wow, like I've been spreading myself so thin, I didn't even have any room for any more creativity. It almost was like this robotic, monotonous thing. And it started to not become fun in the business. So then I, freed up some space. I was then able to build a team of a few people. And then I realized like, wow, I've got a bit more freedom to create. And then I was like, well, what do I want to have fun with here? Because there's lots of different pockets when it comes to the arts and creativity. I love shooting video. Video is my jam. Like I don't get nervous around video. I just don't. It's fun for me. And I have this relationship. I think everything's relationships, right? We have relationship with money, relationship with our business, relationship with our friends and family and partner. And we have a relationship with ourselves. And for me, when I have the video, I never have that fear of judgment showing up around it, or very little of it. And that's my time to be able to express what's really on my heart and my mind. And I think a lot of people are forcing way too much. It's like, find the thing that you love doing. Some people, it may be podcasting. For some people, it may be writing. For some, it may be just straight up speaking at events and getting filmed, and then somebody else puts it together and puts it out. Right.
And
or like Adam, like spoken poetry. I love that, man. I love that you're going like it is a little bit left field compared to what everyone's doing in the industry. But I have so much respect for that, because you're not like, oh, I need to shoot videos like Jay Shetty, or, like I need to, podcast like Jordan Harbinger or someone else, So utilize it in a way to impact. Like I never got into the podcasting game to be like a podcaster. I never did that. It was just a branch to bring more value to my people.
And so people know this about you. You're a podcast. You've interviewed Tony Robbins. You've interviewed Gary Vee. Like you've interviewed some of the biggest names in personal development.
Yeah. Yeah. But ultimately, man, the big thing was, I kept reaching out to these people. I got Deepak Chopra and Jody Spencer and Gabby Bernstein, a lot of incredible people to say yes.
You got Adam Roa too, by the way.
They know this, man. They know this. Of course I would have got you on. The thing is, like, I think one of my superpowers is finding a win-win. Like, I'm really good at negotiating. I'm really good at finding valuable points within both sides and bringing it to the table. I believe that you don't get in life what you deserve, or you think that you deserve. You get what you negotiate. So I've gotten really good at negotiating a lot of deals in my life. Like, some of the biggest career moves that I've ever made were negotiated in a 5-minute conversation or a 10-minute conversation somewhere. And what I've found is, like, the more that I desired to bring more value to my audience and was more courageous in asking for what it was that was required for me to be able to bring a higher level of value, that's when I had even more impact. And it just so happens, like, I get mentorship from these guys too. When I'm interviewing them on the podcast, on the back end, a lot of them I'm having longer conversations or, returned conversations at some point, or helping them to promote their books or whatever it may be. And one of my friends pointed it out to me a few years back. He's like, man, you just did like 2 hours with whatever, Les Brown or like Lisa Nichols. And he's like, I paid, 20 grand for that, or 30 grand for some. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. And then he's like, you're getting free mentorship. I was like, shit, you're right. Like, I'm getting free mentorship from a lot of these people without even knowing it. And, and I'm able to support them because I've learned so much from them as well. So it becomes this really cool cycle where I'm getting value, they're getting value, my people are getting value. It's just like a win-win-win-win-win. So yeah, it's great, man.
And so one of the big things that I've noticed over the years is I've had a really interesting relationship to the idea of hard work. I find that for myself, when I actually consider myself to be one of the most hardworking people that I know, in terms of the amount that I create, the speed at which I create it, and the quality level of what I choose to do. And what is different about it is that the work, what I consider to be work, other people may not consider to be work, right? Like, it may look like, this business thing is going crazy. Let me go out on the balcony and dance for 30 minutes like I did in South Africa, and just like dance to move my body, to move the energy. But that people would look at that and go, he screwed around all day. He danced and he like meditated and he whatever. But for me, I recognize that if everything's in alignment towards your mountaintop and you're really listening, then that meditation, that dance, that ayahuasca ceremony, like whatever it might be, that's the thing that's calling to you. That's the work. And I guess what that does for me is it allows me to look at my life as, instead of this is work and this is play, look at how can I blend it all together? How can I blend it all together? And you're someone who works his ass off. I've seen it. You work about 75% as hard as I do. So what and so what is for you? Do you have a differentiation in terms of play versus work? Like, is it something for you that you intentionally say, this is play time, this is work time? Like, how do you navigate it? Because it can burn you out,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Old Joe would definitely do that. Just like glorify the, like, run into your feet fall off and your face melts. It was like this, like, I'm the hardest worker in the room. Blah, blah, blah. But there's a difference between working hard and working smart. So, I put the two together. And I also think that you can keep pushing uphill or swimming against the waves or the tide, but if you're not in alignment, like you were saying, then it's not effective, long term. And deep down inside, it's like, hey, there's not alignment here. I'm not inspired here. So I very much so, like you, make sure that what I'm going for is inspired. If it's not inspired, it's a no. Like it's very easy for me to say no to things like that. And, it's interesting. We had an experience when I was in South Africa with you where I had an experience where I was dating someone and I was like, man, I just don't feel it. And I was like in my head trying to analyze the whole thing. It was like I needed to come to the table with, this is why, this and this and this and this and this is why I no longer am able to continue this relationship with you. And Adam's like, why do you need to do that? And I was like, shit, you're right. And he's like, can you just go and just say, I don't know what it is right now. And usually I try and work it all out, but it's just not working. And I respect you enough to finish it here. And it's interesting because that was actually also a reflection of, I got really good at that in business. I wasn't bringing that into relationships too, in that sense, because I was trying to separate them so much, because I did treat relationships like business, but there's certain aspects of you that you show up in that one area, you show up like that in another as well. And I find that what I'm doing lately is I'm getting way faster at saying no to the things that don't inspire me and knowing when to say yes when it does. And that totally comes down to the fact that I'm not trying to be like Mr. Hustler all the time. I'd say about 80% in my hustle and 20% in my flow. And like, to me, hustle is responsibility, like aiming for the goal, working on the biz, building on the vision. And then the 20% that's a flow is the me time, like straight up me time, like no distraction, the self-love, habits and all that in place. You're really big on this, man, the whole self-love rituals and everything. And I find like, I think a lot of us, like Joe Dispenza said this a little while back when we were having a conversation. He's like, Joe, I just think people are really poor observers. It's like one of our biggest problems is we're just not very good at observing ourselves. And Jordan Peterson says, like, get really curious about you, like look at you and question, like, why am I behaving this way? Why am I showing like this or that? And monitor yourself and audit yourself. And I've been doing that very much so lately because, I launched an academy. We just did a summit with over 18,000 people in it online that we put together in less than 2 weeks. It blew up. So, I've been holding a lot of space for a lot of people. And at the same time, also, showing up and coaching. I've been doing back-to-back breakthrough sessions. And in my academy, we're doing, I'm doing a lot of breakthrough sessions right now. And it's stretching me and it's great. But at the same time, I'm also making sure like, I'm so paying attention and I'm observing myself. You're going, oh, that's interesting. Like that's showing up, that you're feeling that way, or you're burning on that end, but you're not showing up for yourself in that. So I've been really paying attention to my energy and really managing my energy. And that's through that 20% flow. When I'm in it, I used to let myself get distracted. I don't. Like if I'm in my flow, no one messes with me. Like that's it. That's my time for me.
And what does that look like for you?
So for me, it's meditation, prayer, gratitude. It's journaling. It's also like it's funny because some people would say like the gym is hustle, but for me, it's not. It's like my time to get in. And I realized the other day, man, I was playing some music and I'm like, oh my God, I love this. And it dropped me into this awesome state. And then I realized that I'm linking that to the times when I work out. It's like this, I get to be in my own space, listen to my own music, and I'm working out. And I'm actually even exercising differently. Like I'm actually paying attention to everything in my body. Like when I'm doing weights, I'm like slowing it down. I'm not like just going in to pump it like this, just like, wow, let's get pumped. It's not about that. I'm actually laying and I'm feeling into my body. Like, okay, how are my muscles feeling? What's my heartbeat? What's my breath? I'm paying attention to how I'm breathing while I'm doing it. And it's almost like this meditation, man. I get it when I surf too. Surfing is like a meditation as well. So yeah, they're my practices, my habits for self-love and to be in my flow.
Yeah. And so what's interesting about that for people listening to this is, we can call those flow triggers, right? So when you're designing the things that get you into the frame of mind that feels like flow, what you spoke to with even the music that puts you into a certain state, that can be designed, right? So like everyone listening right now, you can have a playlist that you only listen to when you're doing something that is in that state. And then what happens is that playlist now becomes something that can put you in that state. It's classical conditioning, Pavlov's dogs, right? Where he rings the bell and they salivate. Well, this is a similar thing. And so this is where I think most people kind of hurt themselves in terms of being able to motivate themselves and get themselves into optimal states, which is, it's going to take a month, 21 days or 90 days, depending on what frame, like what you want to choose to do, but to create the habit and create the neurological pathways in your brain that say, when I hear this playlist, it immediately makes me want to like move my body and exercise and that sort of thing. It's not like you just make that playlist and it's magically the thing that does it. There might be some songs in there, but you have to do the action and create the correlation. But you can do that with food. You can do that, like, for example, I'll use another example. I was noticing that during this quarantine, I was starting to eat some late night bowls of granola. I was like having at 11 o'clock at night, I was like, I just want this thing. And instead of just making myself feel bad about it, what I started to do was saying, if I'm going to have the bowl of granola late at night, what I get to do while having the bowl of granola is be creative. So I get to make music, I get to play music, I get to write poetry. That's what I do if I'm going to have it. So that if I decide to do it, I know that it is I've created a correlation with it where it's going to be supportive, as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to eat this and I'm going to sit here and maybe watch YouTube stuff. Like I'm creating it consciously. And I think that's something that's really important, because I know that you do that too. Like, we set up our habits consciously to move us in the direction that we want to go.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said before, success is a habit. More of what you do is more of who you become. And yeah, I've interviewed, obviously lots of people that are playing at a very high level, and you see patterns after a while, man. They're all doing it. Most, like 95% of them are meditating. Most of them work out. I think the thing is, like, a lot of people know the habits they should stick to, that they get to stick to. But what it is also defining, like, why, okay? Like, having a great connection with that habit. For my students, what we often do is we'll write down a list of 20 or 50 benefits that will come into their life if they stick to that habit on a consistent basis. And when they write it out, it's almost like a no-brainer after that. They're just like, oh, of course, I'm sticking to it. Now it's like shadowing all the bullshit excuses, because it's just so blatantly obvious that it needs to be done. One example is exercise. I've always been keen on exercise, but for some people that I do coach, they're like, oh yeah, exercise is kind of hard to get into the gym. They're waiting for motivation. Like, no, let's get inspired. Inspiration is way more powerful than motivation, right? So I get them to list out the benefits, and when you have a look, right? So some of them are actually speakers and coaches. They're aspiring speakers and coaches. So I say, cool. So, like, think about this. What are some of the benefits of exercise? It increases your cognitive function, right? Increases blood flow. It also releases endorphins, serotonin, so it's a feel-good chemicals. You confidence. Look in, yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, increases your confidence. You look in shape, right? So you feel sexy, right? And it's like a thing that's also can be social. You go with your friends, whatever it may be, right? So I'm like listing all these things, and my students are often like, "Oh my God, I've never thought of it like that." And I said, if you want to be a product of the product, right? Like what you speak about. If you talk about being disciplined as a leader, as a speaker, as a coach, and you get up on stage and you're not looking after yourself, people are not going to take you seriously. You're not going to have a positive influence on others because you're not showing up. People can tell by your habits that you're not showing up in it. So I get people to just really pay attention to how they're showing up each and every day, because this happens over time, it compounds. My friend James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. It's such a great book. He goes into the science of habit routines and habit production. And it just shows you how much it compounds over time. Like, I've seen people's lives shift in the space of years to 2 years, just like really sticking to their habits. They're almost like this incredibly like different person. And our habits.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, you know, in order for us to change our identity or transform our identity, it comes from the change within our beliefs and habits. You know,
Mm,
when I wake up every morning and I make my bed, and it's such a like a little task to do, right? It takes me like literally 20 seconds. You know, throw up the blanket, pat it down, pat the pillows, make sure it's all spick and span, tighten the edges, we're good. But when I do that every morning, what I'm telling myself is I'm a disciplined person. So then it trickles into every other part of my day. I start showing up like that in everything else.
one thing that people can do if this works for you, but I used to do it back in the day. Now I use my mornings to get into my body and to like journal and flow. But there are a lot of people who the first things they do in the morning are the ones that they know that they can check off easily. So like
Yes.
the night before, you create a to-do list, and then you wake up in the morning and it's organized in the ones that you can do the easiest and just get done. Because what happens is now by your first hour of being awake, you've checked off 3 or 4 things and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it just gets you in that mindset of seeing the progress, and the brain starts to be supported by that.
Yep. Yep.
Joel, Ash has a question. She wants to know what got you started in this kind of personal development space and who your personal mentors are.
What got me started? Wow. In a nutshell, right? Because it's a journey. I would say, the big thing for me is self-development changed my life. Hands down, for sure. I was in a space where I was in transition. I had left the music industry, used to manage songwriters and producers, working in the studio with people like Usher and Pharrell and Lil Wayne, Nelly, and like a lot of big artists, and it was like my childhood dream. And it was this big passion. I was like, oh my God, this is it. I've cracked it. And then I just found myself empty, every morning for months straight. I was living in LA, and I remember I worked West Hollywood. I was like staring at the roof every morning when I wake up, and I felt this knot in my stomach and these words in my mind, like, you're not supposed to be here. And these were the whispers of wisdom, and it just got stronger and louder. And it got to the point where everyone thought I was crazy. My family, my friends, that were like, are you crazy? You want to throw in the towel? You want to leave like the red carpet and working with all these like, artists that I grew up listening to, right? And I was like, yeah, it's something else is out there for me, and it's not here, And I'm so happy I listened to my gut. The times where I listened to my gut, man, I had massive breakthroughs. And this has been my life lesson, is getting better at listening to my gut.
Mm-hmm.
So I left and then, worked in a 9-to-5 as a salesman. And I met a guy by the name of Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. He introduced me to the idea of having a 10-year vision. And I sat down and just like pulled the tools out and started mapping it all out, I would say I don't agree 100% with the way that, how he is or how he was ethically. It doesn't align with me. But one of the things for sure is that, he lives a very vision-driven life, and he's supported a lot of people in living a visionary life. And, I sat down with the tools and I started to write it all out. And I got to a point, initially it was uncomfortable, but I got to a point where I was like, what would my life look like if I surrounded myself with my top values? My top values that I identified at the time was business, self-development, contribution, travel, and teaching. So I built a business and a community around that. And that was Addicted to Success. And, that was more than 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago. April 2010 was when I launched A to
Yeah,
West. So,
congratulations, bro. A decade.
Yeah,
A decade of spreading positivity and impacting lives.
Yeah, man.
That's incredible, dude. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Who are your personal mentors? Who would you say that people listening to this that you've learned the most from besides me?
Yeah, besides you, I mean, you obviously you were 80% the reason for my success. I would say some people that have had a profound impact on my life. My mom, for sure, and I know it's not the go-to line. Like I'm being for real. Like when I was 7 years old, I remember watching this movie. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to a movie or watched a movie and you were so inspired to follow your dreams. The first time that ever happened for me was when I watched Space Jam, when Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan kicked the Monsters' ass.
I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly. That song played on repeat in my room over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. So I remember running in and telling mom, I'm like, I want to be like Mike. She's like, well, like you're gonna have to start learning how to play basketball, and like she's like, you should find out how how he got so good. I'm like, well, how do I do that? I don't know him. She's like, well, you can learn through books. So this is the first time I actually got introduced to books. So she bought me a Michael Jordan biography called Rare Air. I remember sitting there reading it so much. I took it to school. It got taken off me so many times at school. And I remember just reading it so much about how he used to train with people that were better than him in certain areas of basketball. And he would, just be the last one off the court, that he would have his morning rituals and habits. He would surround himself with, the best of the best. And I just love that idea at a young age of that, like we could live an edgeless life. Like there are no limits, and for me, it just became this thing that I started to transfer into everything I did at a young age. And next thing I'm like, Mom, like, what else can I do? I want to learn how I can have a better career. And Mom's like, well, you could be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? She's like, I'll give you this book. So she gave me a book called 50 Ways to Make Pocket Money. I was like, mowing people's lawns, did a garage sale, freaked my parents out because I'm putting signs all over the street and like trying to sell off all their stuff. So they're not very happy about that. And then I ended up, making dog biscuits and selling dog biscuits to everyone I knew. And the other thing that I learned was the idea of sales. So I would, work next door with my next door neighbor on mowing people's lawns and doing garden work. And then the money I'd make from that, I would then go down to the grocery store and buy chocolates, Toblerone bars and mint patties. And I would go and around the neighborhood, knock on people's doors and sell it back to them at double the price. And that was like, I turned my $20 into 40 and my 40 into 80. And then I would go and buy basketball cards and hustle basketball cards at school and get the rare ones and sell them at these stores in the shops and just keep, stacking up, man. I had like $300 in my piggy bank and I was so proud of it. I was like, oh my God. But it wasn't even about the money. It was like what it represented was the fact that I found a way to make something out of nothing.
It's so funny to me how many entrepreneurs, like successful entrepreneurs I talk to who have always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I can really say thank you. My mom's actually on this call right now. And her and my dad introduced me to the concept of personal development at a young age. They gave me like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They gave me the Michael Jordan book. I don't know if it was called Rare Air, but it was this really beautiful black book, like a small square black book that was beautiful. And I would read about my favorite, I was into basketball as well, my favorite basketball players and things. And so, Mom, cover your ears on this one. I would actually print out naked photos from the internet back when it was like 56K. And then I would sell them for like a quarter. I would like sell them to like my school, my friends at school for like a quarter. Sorry, Mom. But the point is like the entrepreneurial thing of so like, what do people want? Yeah. I was, but that idea of, I feel like that is such a common thing, which is that there is a story for how you at a young age were learning from people that whether it's you wanted to be a basketball player or you wanted to be a musician or whatever, learning from people that you looked up to and simultaneously having that kind of entrepreneurial mindset of like, what can I do that's mine? Like, how can I do that? And it's often around how can I make some money initially. And I think that, it's so cool for me to see that because I think that we often in society overvalue entrepreneurship. Like right now, it seems as if it's this trendy thing that says, be an entrepreneur, don't be a sheep. Like all of a sudden a 9-to-5 job isn't cool. And I don't actually believe that. And I think that when I have more of these conversations, I can say some people really have that personality since they were young of, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want my own thing. I want that thing. And then there are other people who are beating themselves up thinking that they're supposed to do that. And so I feel like that's just important to speak to at least.
Well, yeah, and this is such a great conversation, and I know it's humming with a lot of people here that they're talking about how they had the things they had when they were younger.
Yeah, bubblegum hustle.
Yeah, and I can see you guys kind of nodding. You're like, yeah, I get it. You know, that's where it's reminding you, right? It's nostalgic. I think it honestly, at the core of it, it comes back to curiosity and rebelliousness. Like I was a rebel, man. Like straight up, I was like, why does it have to be this way? And I wanted to challenge it. You know, a lot of the other kids in the school weren't doing that because they were just going with what the system was telling them to do, or their parents were probably in the same system itself. I just always was like, why do we have to do it that way? Not to be a little shit, not to be difficult, but to just be like, I think there's like, this doesn't sound great and fun and powerful. Like, what else can we do? You know, and I got really curious, man. I'd ask a lot of questions. I was probably that annoying little kid to my mom. That's funny. I said the other day, she's like, yeah, you did. You asked a lot of questions. She said, but it actually got me thinking too. So she's like, I always felt like we were having like coaching with each other at like this, you know, little age. And so that's my biggest thing is just this curiosity, man. I have this insatiable desire to just like, even the word addicted to success, you know, sometimes I get a little bit of a kickback. It's like, hey, why would you call it addicted to success? That's a bad thing. I'm like, well, it depends what your definition of success is, right? Like it's subjective. For me, it's transformed, it's evolved over the years. Money was my motivation for a while when I didn't have money. It's usually when we don't have something, we want more of it because we think we're missing out. And I got to a point where for me, success is living in my potential as often as possible. You know, and I do that in so many ways. It's like for you, bro, when you're dancing and you're creating your music, that's you flexing your potential. You're freaking flexing on it, man. And it's what I do when I get out on stage and speak at events as well. I love the game of transformation. I love speaking. I love coaching. I want to keep stretching and going like, how deep can we go? How wide can we be? You know? So you got to find that, guys. You got to get that, like that. It's like this magnificent obsession. You know, it's like, what are you willing to die for? It sounds crazy. And it sounds like, you know, like the word passion at the root of it all, the Latin word for passion is to suffer for, right? You know, the movie Passion of the Christ, like the suffering of the Christ. It's like, what are you willing to die for on your mission? You love it that much. And I think a lot of us don't ask enough questions. A lot of us don't have that, you know, haven't stepped in and carved out the time to be curious because we're so in a system right now that's trying to box us in.
And that's so valuable, man. That was a great little quote. But the thing about it that I want to elaborate on is if you're not passionate about it, if you don't love it, if it doesn't drive you, if you don't go to bed thinking about it and you wake up thinking about it, more often than not, it won't get you through the times when it gets hard. It won't be enough because it will get hard. There is going to be that time where you get to put in the work, the time where it doesn't seem like it's going right, the time where you may have to take a risk financially to like say, I believe in this. And if you're not passionate about it, then the passion is what gets you through those times. It is the thing. I love what I do so much that I can't think, I don't stop. Like I don't stop thinking about it. It may look very different because I've now expanded into all these areas, but I'm constantly thinking about the things that I talk about and the things that I do. It's just a part of me. I'm so passionate about it. And Yusuf asked a really good question here, Joel, which is when you have something like that, you have a big goal, you have a vision that, and you know, it takes that kind of like all in mentality. And then you start that, and then all of a sudden this other vision comes in and this other goal, and it can definitely feel like it would take you in this direction. And you may not be able to see how they blend. They feel like you hit this fork in the road. How do you handle that as a visionary entrepreneur like yourself?
I'm a big believer in really narrowing my focus, Yusuf. There could be a couple of reasons, right? Because look, often what we talk about in self-development, it's often the effect. It's not the cause. Everyone keeps talking about the effect. You know, I procrastinate, or you know, I'm scared to level up, or you know, I'm just not happy with my vision, or I'm not sticking to my habits. It's like, okay, cool. What's at the core, right? Why are we doing this? And I'm actually writing a book right now on vision. It's coming together really well. I'm in such a great place with it, and I'm in alignment with what I'm putting out. And through the process, I also found that I have a really big passion and really big desire to get people results. I think there's a lot of coaches out there, and you could probably say the same too, Adam, that there's a lot of people that want to be big. Like they want all the followers and all the likes, and they market themselves really well. But on the back end, they're shit house. Like they don't get results for their clients. And so that's great. Getting results for people is being great. And then marketing yourself as being big. It's like, well, you get to do both in the sense of brand and market and be big, but a lot of people are rushing to one side and not fulfilling the other. So for me, like the best way to get results when it comes to the vision process I teach is also making sure we're clearing up the mess in the background first, because vision is very much creation, and you got to be in alignment to create a really powerful vision. So a lot of what holds people back, where they're scattered, right? They're scattered in like having too much going on at once, or they're getting ready to get ready. They're like waiting for the perfect moment, or they've got that, that shiny object syndrome where they're like, oh, this idea and that idea and this idea. That all comes from procrastination. But at the core, the behaviors that you're expressing are also coming from something else, right? On a deeper level. A lot of what we do is we don't execute, we don't set big goals or big visions to go for, because if we do and we don't hit it, we tell ourselves in that experience that we're failures or we've made a mistake. So a lot of people are scared to set themselves up to experience failure. I invite it. That's the difference, right? Like that, if there was a defining thing of like why I've crushed it in my vision and why certain students crush it and some don't, is because the ones that step in do it anyway. The others that don't, they go in kind of like they're standing on the edge like this and they're not leaping. They're kind of wavering and they're just not doing the leap. It's because they haven't worked through the limiting, or the destructive core beliefs. They've got, I'm not good enough, really loud in the background. And so I would challenge that, man, and be like, okay, why am I scattering myself in my vision? Why am I not focused? Am I not aligned with my values? Do I need to do more research to pull the pieces together to find the reference points, to create belief reference points in my mind, to realize like, okay, there's a great way to do this and I'm inspired now, let's go. Right. But the ultimate thing is like, what's holding you back, man? What's the boulder? Because it shouldn't be that hard. Like it really shouldn't be that hard. There's going to be times where you get challenged along the way, but if it's feeling really forced or really hard, or you're getting really scattered, there's usually something going on in the background that's trying to run the show.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, from my perspective around energetics and frequency and stuff, Yusuf, with, I think that when you're moving towards a mountaintop, it's one step at a time. And so the idea that comes in when you're moving towards that mountaintop may be to launch this thing. And then when you take that step and you start doing it, you may realize that that actually was just a step for you to learn certain things to make the next pivot. You're like, wow, I actually learned the value of a sales funnel. I actually learned how important it is to have certain types of organizational structures, like who's there, but like how I've done it with my different employees, right? Like that sort of stuff I learned by trying things that I may not even be doing right now. Right. And so not looking at my inspiration of the moment as being, this has to be the thing that becomes everything. But for example, for everyone in here, The Art of Choosing Love, that reality show that I created and put out for free on YouTube, I had the idea that it was going to be this massive thing that I then sell to Netflix or whatever. We build a whole brand around it and everything. That was what I thought. And I went all in on that. That's a key piece. I went all in because I didn't see anything else that felt true. Now, when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I see the reasons why it didn't turn into that. And by the way, I see all of the value that has allowed me to make a community like Create possible because of understanding how to work with the team. And then the next, and how to produce content, how to optimize on YouTube, like all of the things that I learned along the way of doing the art of choosing love, make it where I see the art of choosing love as not being done. That was just the step at that time that was necessary. And if we can let go of the idea that your particular inspiration has to be the thing, that's a valuable thing to be able to do, because so many people get locked into an idea. And then to speak to your point, Joel, it is different though than starting something and then hitting the resistance of your limiting beliefs and then abandoning the idea for the next shiny object. And I think what your point, what I took away from what you were said was, it's up to you to do the work to figure out the difference. Like that's what personal development is. That's what this whole journey is about, is can I see the things that are holding me back from who I want to be in the life I want to lead? And when I see them, am I willing to take the action to shift them?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much there, man. This could be a whole other podcast episode in itself.
Let's do it on Addicted to Success.
Let's do it, man. Yeah, I've been spending a lot of back-to-backs with my academy. We're filling my academy right now. I've run so many master classes and summits, and I end up pulling people up on Zoom or summit and coaching them, and going through their stuff. So much of it goes back to the fact that, they made something mean something when they were young. And then it ends up being this like running story of I'm not good enough, failure and mistakes are bad, I don't have enough, I'm not loved, I'm lonely. Like a lot of things show up for people. And it, it's really hard to create in a room that smells like shit. And when I say that, it's like what people do often is they'll sweep poo under the rug, dog poo under the rug. And then they're like, it doesn't stink. It doesn't stink. It's like, no, it stinks. Like it really does. You can't keep pretending that something's not there. Like, and this is the thing is like, I believe that everyone consciously wants to go to a great place, right? You got the conscious here, you got the unconscious here. And it's like, consciously you want to go here, but the unconscious is like, nah, we've been working all your life trying to keep you here and safe. It always goes back to safety. It's like, we got to stay safe. So it'll come up with the craziest things to try and keep you there. So what's the key there? And the key is to no longer be the slave to your mind, but the master of it. And someone here asked earlier, who was it? It was
there's a great question.
Alexa Nicole. Yeah. So Alexa was asking, what do you personally do when you're purging, upgrading, and deep emotions, and you have a full day of clients, a large group audience to show up for? So I'd probably need a better definition of purging just to make sure that I'm answering it properly.
Got that one.
Adam's laughing. I know why you're laughing.
That's my language.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what would you say is purging real quick so we can get into that?
If she's going through a period of time where like what you went through in South Africa, that period of time where you're like, I'm in this period of growth. I can see what's happening, right? And there's emotions that come up. There's like thoughts that are happening. I am upgrading right now. And what I want to do is crawl into my room and just be there and like sit and just like pay attention to all that stuff. But I have my life and my business and all of those things.
Yeah, it's funny because we call it transformational transition space. I'm like, purging sounds better and faster to say too. Awesome. Okay, cool. If I'm in that space, and actually it's happened quite a few times, and I've got to go up on stage and speak to an audience of hundreds or thousands, I get real with it. I tell people that I'm going through that shit. And I never used to, and it was tough. And it's the same thing as what I just mentioned before. It was like that hiding, avoiding, that sweeping it under the rug. It stinks. Like it's just worse. It's like, it's back there, and then you're trying to be someone that's not that, but you're going through that, and you're trying not to identify with it, but you are identifying with it because you're trying to avoid it, and it's trying to get louder so that it can send the signal that's there. So if I can identify with the fact that I get to be the master of my mind, not the slave of it, and when I step in and my thoughts become more powerful than the emotion, I get to create change, right? So then when I get up and I'm like, hey guys, I'll be real with you. I'm about to teach you about this very thing, and I'm in it right now. You guys are getting an exclusive, a bonus. Like, this doesn't happen very often. Like, how do you feel about that? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, who knows what I'm going to come up with today? This is some exclusive shit right here, guys. So what I'd love to share with you is, this is what's coming up for me. And yes, I'm a leader, and yes, I'm standing here before you, and yes, I've, done the work, but guess what? The work never stops. So
Mm.
what's great for you to know about that is that I'm not perfect, and neither are you. And which is why it's more important for us to pay attention and do the work. So, I create like a great conversation, and that's what it is. And honestly, the times where I'm being vulnerable and open with, like, people just, they tell me after, they're like, oh my God, I connected with you way faster than the other speakers. Or like, I needed to hear this today. I was going through this yesterday or last week, or whatever it is. Like, every time I got vulnerable and I was courageous in my vulnerability, it wasn't manipulative vulnerability, like, oh, this and this and that to try and get effect. It was just like, if it felt true and real, it came through.
Mm.
And honestly, it's a practice. Like, everything is a practice. We practice scarcity too, just as much as we practice abundance. So just really gauging and going like, okay, yes, I feel like shit, or yes, I'm moving through this thing. Honor that, and share, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm in this transition. When I speak at events, I often ask people in the room, who here feels like they're in transition right now? 90% of the room will put their hand up. Every single time, 90%. It's like, well, I'm in transition. I'm like, great, awesome. It means you're moving.
People who are
and
listening
that's
right now, put your hand up if you feel like you're in transition right now. Yeah, there you go.
And it's such a gift, right? It's such a gift. Like, imagine if you were just sitting in one room with like nothing else, no creative inspiration, no challenging thoughts, nothing, and you were just doing nothing. Ugh, right? I believe that we're either moving, we're either in creation or destruction. The worst place is stagnation. It's like you've got everything you need, but you're sitting there and you're not even moving, right? Like, destruction is, I got pain and like, now I get to pay attention to that. There's a signal like, let's go. And creation is obviously the ultimate goal, is to stay in that more consistently than not. I love the vision process. I talked about the vision before. I teach people their 10-year vision, like I lived in for the last 10 years. I've been traveling the world teaching the vision process for 7 years, because the first 3 I was living in it and trying it out myself and becoming the embodiment of what I teach. And I've got my students achieving their third and fourth year vision within the first year, which is just like insane, because now they're living with intention. They're consciously choosing more often than not. And something happens to you on an unconscious level, because 95% of our thoughts are the same as the day before. So if we only think 5% new thoughts on average, as just unconscious beings bouncing around like a pinball in a pinball machine of life. When we start getting intentional about our day, like we talked about habits before, we talked about finding your inspiration, we talk about clearing out, the working on the core destructive beliefs, limiting beliefs, and you start choosing more from a conscious place and getting on board with your unconscious and going, you know what? I know you're going to kick and scream. I know that you're trying to keep us safe, little buddy. I've got a better direction. Let's just try this for a little while, right? You get on your own team. You get out of your own way, right? Because we are our own worst obstacles at times. So we start buddying up and making it work, right? We shift our new thoughts from 5% to 10%, or even possibly 15%. So I want you to think about what that does over a long period. You double your income, you double your impact, you double your network, you double your memories, you double your experiences, you double your learning. Like, just so much comes from that, because now you're living a life of intention. And you pair, like, law of attraction, which is match your frequency of what it is that you desire in order to get it. It's the same as like what Adam teaches in a similar sense. Like, I love his energetic teachings. Amazing. You pair that as well with the law of intention, which is set it and get it. Powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. So I'm a big believer that 80% of it is mindset and 20% is mechanics. So I get a lot of people that come to me to learn branding and marketing and how to blow up their brands and reach millions, and I can teach all that, but you're not going to move too far if you've still got the boulder in the background that you're holding on to. And that's where all the work around the limiting beliefs and everything else comes into play, the trauma, the healing, the wounds, and all that as well. So very important stuff.
Wow. There it is. We just got a straight wisdom bomb from Joel Brown to finish this thing out. The only thing that I'll add to what you've said, because you said it beautifully, is for my own process, what I've learned to accept when I'm in the upgrade process is that it's all happening for you. So the fact that that has shown up on that day for whatever reason means that it is there to support you, that emotion. And so as long as you don't say, I don't want this to be the case right now, and you actually say, this is here for me, and how I can learn, like how, your job then becomes, how can I use this, as opposed to, I'm going to resist this. And so I would just add that. That's the only piece. Other than that, everything Joel said was epic. And Joel, thank you for being on here. You can see the community here has loved you and what you have to say. Can you let them know where they can find more of you and follow along and get more of what you offer?
Yeah, for sure. Guys, follow me on Instagram at I am Joel Brown. So I'll just drop it in here. And I connect with everyone that reaches out to me.
Except for me.
That. Dude, you know what, man? And that's the thing we're going to talk about. Like,
Joel doesn't write me back. Joel doesn't write me back.
I'm in hustle. Yeah, it's rare. It's rare that I respond. So I'm actually bringing an assistant on. This is important. You know, it's really important to make sure that you're not coming out of your genius. And what's happened is we've created, you know, our academy. We have like so much is on and popping right now. It's amazing. Like we're in this massive incline across the board in our business and everything. I restructured my business. We've got staff in different roles and responsibilities. Like everything is just so aligned right now. And this whole Corona situation actually was the inspiration for that. So like, you know, it sucks that, you know, negative things are happening around it too. And I'm also, you know, finding the silver lining, and I hope you guys are too. But yeah, like for me, I look at it like, wow, like it's really actually, it's pulling me, it's demanding for me to be in my genius more now than ever. And because of that, I'm realizing very quickly it's become very evident in the areas that I need to not be doing myself and have other people fill. So, you know, if you've got a business, like this is delegation 101. Like we know this, but it's sometimes what we do is we get so attached to working in the business and not actually on the business and coming out and actually looking at it for what it is and moving the pieces. So that's a big thing for me. But anyway, my Instagram is at I am Joel Brown. Hit me up on there. Okay. I've got my content on there. If you want to expand more with the content I have, I'm not stingy. I share my best stuff all over it. Like you're going to get the best of the best. I'm a creator just as much as Adam is too. And it's like, I believe there's so much more that can come through it. So I give away very generously on so many fronts with the content that I share. So dive in there. And if you see another masterclass pop up, register for the masterclass. It's free. And yeah, we do 3 days deep diving in and mapping out your 90-day game plan for your future. So that's been a really powerful masterclass that I run every now and then.
Amazing. All right, Joel. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy dude, and dropping into the deep dive live with us here in the Create community. Create community members, thank you for being here live, asking those questions that have like allowed Joel and I to go deep, and for continuing to show up to the events. Just a quick reminder, Friday night, our Friday night live, I'm going to do a spoken word performance. So you're going to get me for an hour, spoken word and all the other things. And then we're bringing back the house party, virtual house party, Saturday night. Both of those events are 7 p.m. Pacific time. I love all of you. Thank you for being here. Joel, again, one more time, bro. Thank you so much for being a part of the Create community and for being such a good friend, man, despite that not answering my WhatsApps. I still love you.
Yeah, I still love you too, bro.
All right, everybody.
We get you out to Australia when this whole COVID thing blows over, man.
For sure. My plan is to tour New Zealand and Australia before the end of the year with the spoken word show. So we'll do it.
Amazing, man. Awesome.
All right, brother. Thank you very much, Create family. Let's show some love on the screen for Joel Brown. Joel, thank you again, everybody. Reminder that always, in always, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Have a beautiful rest of your day wherever you are in the world.